Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Ed Raby, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like because the purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheist and deconversion issues and any issues related to those issues. A hearty shout out to the Rabyd Nation. Join the nation by hitting that subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel in a more tangible way, hit the join button. And your membership options that lead to citizenship in the Rabyd Nation will be presented to you. Today is Friday, so I'm doing kind of a Rabyd Reflections on the week that was. And usually I talk about one issue, but this week, because of everything that happened this week, I kind of have to talk about two. I was going to just talk about my live stream with the Kentucky Atheist on Sunday at 4 o'clock. I'll leave a link to that, to his channel, and to that live stream in the description, so you can look those up if that's your interest. But I did a video in my Biblical Studies series where I talk about Pentecostals and divine healing using Acts chapter 3, where Peter heals the person at the beautiful gate. And of course, a whole bunch of theists come out and they give me their divine healing stories. And you would think, after all the years I was a Pentecostal and a Pentecostal minister and all the divine healing stories I heard, isn't there one of them, Mr. Rabyd Atheist, that struck you as being true evidence for, a divine power at least that heals people? And my response to that is no. And that's the real damning thing. And the reason is, being a very thoughtful person, I would think about every divine healing story and ask myself a question: is there an alternative explanation? And every single time, yes. Okay. Some of the stories that were given, and this is why none of these stories impress me. They don't impress me anymore. I spent way too much time in the Pentecostal church hearing these stories and realizing they have alternative explanations. But let's get to the nitty-gritty, okay, of most of these stories. Most of these stories either start out one of two ways. I think I had this disease or this condition, or I went to the doctor and was diagnosed with. Now, the first one is very suspect because, number one, you're doing self-diagnosis. You could be completely wrong. Maybe you did have that condition, maybe you didn't, but there's no way to verify any of that. Okay, so those are tossed out immediately because it's a self-diagnosis. Why should I believe your diagnosis? You're not a doctor or whatever, unless you're a doctor saying this. But I noticed most doctors don't join Pentecostal or charismatic churches, at least not that I'm aware of. They seem to settle for the real world, health explanations. But the other one is I went to the doctor and was diagnosed with. Okay, you have a diagnosis. Now, medical profession being what it is, there's human beings in it. Sometimes there's, bad diagnosis or false diagnosis. That happens. It's not as common as it used to be, but it does happen. So we have to consider that as an alternative explanation. But also, are you telling me that when you were diagnosed with this problem, that the doctor or the medical professionals didn't give you an alternative, some sort of medical procedure you were doing, some sort of medicine to take, some sort of dietary changes, things like that? They didn't give you a prescribed course of action. And a good chunk of the time it's, yeah, and I did that. Okay. So now at this point, the story changes where God told me to go to this thing and get prayed for, or God told me to do this, or I went to my service because I am a Pentecostal and I got prayed for. I saw tons of people that came in and said, the doctor told me I had this. And sometimes it's not that the doctor told them that they had this, that it was possibly that. Okay. And so they get prayed for. Well, and then I went back to the doctor and the doctor said, well, it's not really that, it's this, or hey, that's gone away. Or it's gotten better. I even had a story this week about somebody, I've seen tumor shrink, and I almost asked the question, what x-ray vision do you have that watch tumors shrink? I mean, have you seen tumors shrink on the outside of a body? Because I can tell you that that's kind of a magic trick too. That can be done that way too. So there's alternative explanations all along your story, okay? And it really leads to this problem of, Did God heal you, or did the treatment that you followed heal you? Okay, if you went to the doctor, he diagnoses something, he gives you a course of action, you follow that course of action, then somewhere along in that course of action you get prayed for, and then you go back to the doctor, and the doctor says, hey, your condition's gotten better. And your response is, well, the prayer for me must have been the thing that healed me, not the prescribed treatment or not the prescribed this or that. Then why do you make that assumption? Okay, because you want to. Okay, I'm sorry, every person that I've talked to who believes in divine healing is predisposed to believe in divine healing and to interpret anything that happens regarding their health or the other people's health around them as God did it. Okay, because they don't bother to come up with an alternative explanation, which is very feasible, or that other things actually healed them. And I did this all my life in the Pentecostal church. I would follow up these divine healing stories, and almost every time there was an alternative explanation, some other way of doing it. And that leads to my real problem with divine healing stories, is that, well, they're an argument from experience. And I've already dealt with the argument from experience many, many times. See, the problem with divine healing stories is almost every time it's somebody just telling a story. They're telling a story of their experience. And there's two problems with that. Number one, you can't share your experience directly with me. And that means that there's a ton of alternative explanations that could be there because you could be interpreting it incorrectly, because that's the second thing, problematic thing, is that how do I know that your interpretation of your experience is infallible? In fact, the vast majority of us would probably say, sometimes my experience and what I thought about it, later on in retrospect, it's not what it was. I've done that a lot with a lot of my Pentecostal experiences because I realize psychological manipulation is real, psychological expectation is real, herd mentality is real. If you go expecting certain things, you have a tendency to interpret things through that expectation, and that's what happens. That's the real issue of divine healing. To me, I think people who are predisposed to believe in divine healing are going to see divine healing stories everywhere. But if you're a skeptic like myself, eventually you say, wait a minute, they went to the doctor. They started following the prescribed treatment. Then they got prayed for somewhere, and then later on the doctor tells them that they're getting better or have gotten better. How do they know it wasn't the treatment? In fact, it probably was the treatment or the change in diet or whatever the hell else they did. And you want to, because you're predisposed and had been indoctrinated or whatever, to give credit to this magical deity of yours, instead of realizing that the people that actually helped you was another human being. And I don't know, it kind of shortcuts that. The real issue with divine healing stories is I don't see this where somebody says, okay, the doctor says I have a medical condition. We're going to document that, have him write that down, that we conclusively concluded that this person has the medical condition. Okay. We're not going to give them any prescribed treatment. They're not going to follow any prescribed treatment. Instead, we're going to have them go to this faith healing service. We're going to have them get prayed for, and then when they're going to come back in a couple days, and then we're going to do all the tests to see if they still have this condition again. And if they don't, then the only thing that they did was the divine healing. It never happens that way. I've never had a story do that. There's also the issue of most of these conditions are always internal. They're always cancer or some sort of medical chemical imbalance. It's never the kind of stuff that Jesus is reported to do, where somebody who's been documented to be absolutely, a paraplegic or something, and suddenly they're walking around, or they don't have eyeballs and suddenly they can see, or they're documented and clinically proven to be deaf and then suddenly they can hear, or they have leprosy, which still happens in some places, and suddenly that leprosy is cleared, and cleaned up. We don't have that kind of spectacular healing whenever I hear these stories. It's always something that is hearsay that you had the condition, and hearsay that God is the one that healed you. That interpretation doesn't impress me anymore. If you want to prove your divine healing story, get me some documented, medical professional thing that said you had this. Don't take their recommended treatment. Only get prayed for, And then when you come back, have that same medical professional say, yeah, the condition's healed up. And get rid of the possibility that they misdiagnosed it in the first place. See, that's the problem with your divine healing stories and why I don't buy them and why I never will. Because until somebody gives me some good, solid divine healing evidence with some real, amputee regrows a limb kind of stuff, I'm not going to buy it because it's always subject to the subjective interpretation of the person who had the experience or saw it. And if you're predisposed to believe in divine healing, that's kind of a strike against you. You need some sort of skeptic to verify what you're saying before I'll buy it. Sorry, I spent way too much time in the Pentecostal church, saw way too many quote unquote miracles and healings, and they turned out to be something else or had a completely alternative explanation. I want to shift gears here to my second topic for the day, which is my live stream with the Kentucky Atheist. For those of you that follow me and subscribe to me, I would encourage you to go over to his channel. He's a very different flavor than I am, but we both have kind of the same goal to normalize atheism and normalize deconversion. And so he kind of does more live streams than I do and a lot more discussions and things like that. So if that's more your thing, head over there, check him out, subscribe to him. I'd encourage you to do so because it's a good channel if that's what you're into. And he's getting very close to 1,000 subscribers himself. So, maybe some people from the Rabyd Atheist can push him over that edge, and I would be very happy for that. But my appearance with I Killed Earl and myself, the Rabyd Atheist, on his channel, we were talking about autism. And in my case, I wanted to bring up its relationship to religion and things like that. And I want to comment on it was a very positive experience for me, autistic though I am, introverted though I am. I think we got on there, and it's interesting how many unbelievers are affected by autism, either themselves or their family or something like that. And I want to kind of talk about that a little bit because I don't know if we brought that out very well. But autistic people have a tendency, if you give them sufficient evidence one way or the other, they'll change their reasoning about it. Okay, we're very, when we get into whatever we get into, we deep dive it hard. And I think the whole belief thing came out. But I have to give my props to the Kentucky Atheist and ASHO and many of the other people that showed up for that live stream that asked some pretty damn good questions. I want to give my props to I Killed Earl because she was dead on point with her statistics. She brought up some issues that, like women, when it comes to women, diagnosis is a lot less. There's a lot of alternative explanations that could be there for that, but she brought out how that has an effect where they get even later diagnosis. And as somebody who got a later diagnosis as an adult male, it affects me much the same way as it does them. And the earlier the diagnosis, the better. And that's why we encourage it. But a couple of things that came up that the only people that irritated me during this whole thing were the people that wanted to say something like, oh, autism is a conspiracy by Big Pharma. I'm like, what medicine is there for autism? I mean, there's medicine for like depression and anxiety, but what medicine is there for a genetic condition? Okay, I mean, what are you going to do? And it's not like, I always find it very interesting that people come up with these conspiracy theories that somehow somebody's going to make money off of something, and that's why they created something. There's enough things wrong in the world, wrong with human bodies and mentality, that you don't have to make shit up to make money off of it. You just have to provide a response, okay? And then sell it. So I always find that very interesting. Those kind of conspiracy theories just don't impress me either. But also, I was asked a question during that live stream, are you happier now than you were as a Christian? And the unequivocal answer is yes, I am. Because I'm now getting a real world, solution to the problem. And I think, if you watch that live stream in retrospect, for me it was, I'm just sharing my experience, how I got diagnosed about a year ago. I haven't been officially diagnosed, but everything I do with hypersensitivity, with all the other stuff works. And so it's, just this kind of attitude of, once I humbled myself and realized this is a real, genuine possibility for me, and I started studying it and learning about it and starting applying some of the things I learned to myself, it began to work. But the biggest thing that I think both me and I Killed Earl want people to understand about autism is that the quicker you get it diagnosed in yourself, easier it is to deal with. That's why I very much support, people that are getting this diagnosed in children and teenagers. And, I Killed Earl now points out to me that we need to maybe take a look at the autism test. How does autism express itself in biological females? How does it, how does that work? Okay. And, because it might express itself differently than it does, in men and boys. And so we're kind of, I suddenly realized that there's an issue here. And it doesn't change the fact that I'm very grateful for it. But as with all things human, we can edit and we can, create things that'll be more and more effective. And autism is still kind of the new kid on the block in a lot of respects as far as conditions like this. And neurology has become kind of an interest of mine. And so it's why I can accept a lot of things neurologically might be different in other people. And that's why the way they are. Okay, our brains and our neurology has a lot to do with who we are and how we act. And that aspect coming out in that conversation. From an emotional standpoint, it was a very good experience. I enjoyed that. I came out of that feeling better than I had in a long time. And this leads me to the conclusion that not only does talking to my therapist about these issues help, but talking to other people also helps me. It's not just, it's making people aware, and I'm all for educating people. But a lot of the times, as an autistic person, if I don't feel some sort of neurological advantage in doing it, I don't do it. So it was strange because the rest of that day and all into Monday, my birthday, I felt really good. And I had to say, well, it was talking about this stuff and talking about who I was. And so it was a very positive experience for me, and I want to give a shout out to the Kentucky Atheist and for ASHO64, one of my members, for inviting me to that. It was just a great moment. I enjoyed it very much. And I think, it's just one of those things that, you see, there's all kinds of different community levels in the YouTube sphere for atheists. And, you got all the big names and, in YouTube atheism and secularism at the top, from the Iron Ross to the Apologias to, to the Vice Rhinos and all those guys. And then you have a lot more like they're upcoming, the Skeptic and Professor Plink and a few others. And then you got us down here that are still in this sphere of trying to get to those 5,000, 10,000 subscribers. And then you got the smaller atheist channels that are just starting to get going. And there's different communities. And every community, though, that I've participated in so far has always treated me well. And I appreciate that. And KA was no exception. And, I'm always happy to show up there whenever I can, whenever I see a live stream that I can be a part of. And I'm now beginning, introverted, autistic though I am, I'm starting to see the benefit of talking about other issues related to atheism or maybe why atheism. And it has been really helpful for me. So it was a great experience. And if you're an atheist YouTuber, I get a lot of young atheist YouTubers that want to interview me. And I always try to accept those whenever I can. I've had a couple that I haven't been able to accept because, of scheduling conflicts. I work thirds. I'm really only available Fridays, Saturdays for interviews. And sometimes, I'm out with my family. So all of that has worked out wherever it has. And I'm always happy to interview, even if the channel's really small, because it's not about that. Okay. There's a lot of atheist YouTubers, young ones that have a lot of potential, and what they really need is just a boost. I remember when I was then. Okay. I guess I don't forget where I came from. I've had a lot of good success on this channel in recent days, and I've gone from that almost 1,000 subscribers to, you know, to what it is now. What is it, 3,250,000 now, 3,250K, and I'm just humbled by that. In a short amount of time, I've gone from one member ASO to 8. At present time of making this video. So, that just awes me. But I remember when I spent a year in where some of these guys are at, and another year, and all that. So, whenever I get a chance to appear on these channels, I tend to do it. There may come a day where I can't, but as long as I can, I'm going to do it. So it's just a good moment where we're building community, and I think that's important. So let's see. I want to thank everybody for all the birthday wishes. Appreciate it. I already started on this 56th journey around the sun. We'll see if we make it to the end of it. But it's kind of humbling because I spent a lot of time as an atheist without a community, and now there's a lot of community people that are backing me up and wishing me happy birthday and best successes. And I know it's the internet, and internet friends aren't the same as ones you have right around you, but a lot of you that I've seen are like the OG subscribers to this channel, and you remember when too. And I appreciate you guys for sticking around. I know this channel has had its ups and downs until very recently, so thank you very much. Appreciate all of you, and appreciate all the birthday wishes. We'll see what happens. On tap for next week, I'm going to hit some pretty controversial issues. I'll do more of that in the community tab, but just to let you know, I'm heading down the route because the Tuesday Bible study is going to be about when God kills, and I'm going to talk about how one of the genocides that God orders and some of the effects that has that with that. Plus, the day before, I think I'm going after Alan Parr again with his video on slavery. I know a lot of people have done that one, but I want to give my biblical scholar take on it. And then we'll still be talking about corporate disciplines, calling about confession, and then we'll be switching gears in my discussions about God because I want to switch to faith and the nature of faith and belief. I've been kind of following the 30 Arguments Against God's Existence by Jonathan Pierce. So I've been following that outline, but adding my own spin to it. And I've gotten to the point where, let's get way away from some of the attributes of God. Let's talk about faith a little bit and what it means to believe in some of the arguments for God based on belief. So we're headed in that direction, and then who knows what Rabyd Reflections will be. It's different every week, so it'll always be something. But we're heading into a heavier week. This week was kind of light, but let's see what happens next week. So thanks for everybody for being around. And as always, thanks for every like, share, and subscribe. You guys are awesome. I also want to give a shout out to my members, my citizens, my rabid citizens. These people are the people that make some of the videos possible. Some of my videos don't get the views or the likes or subscribes, but I think they're important to help people that are deconverting. And so these members are the ones that really help that. So thank you very much. You guys are awesome. Appreciate it. I encourage everybody to become a citizen in the Rabid Nation. You have to buy your citizenship. Sorry. At least I'm honest about it. Other than unlike some other nations. But that's what you have to do. So, once you're a citizen, I'm getting ready with that, guys. I'm going to be starting to ask some polls, like whenever I get close to the end of one series of things I'm doing, what would you guys like to see? Maybe give a poll of different options, and you members are going to have some say in that. So, if you want some say in some of the content in the Rabyd Atheist as a community, that's the way to do it. So thank you very much. And as always, live your best life. You only get one go around, and then it's over, and there's no afterlife. So you want to make your life a good one. So give all your time, your money, your opportunities to building up yourself, to building relationships with the people that you love and care for, and to make this a better world. And don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith, because that's a dead end. I speak from experience, and you'll be happier if you do so. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.